Welcome to Tech Talent Today, where IT leaders share their tough challenges, creative solutions, and latest insights. You'll discover fresh ideas and inspiration here with your host, IT staffing veteran and president of Claremont Technologies, Jody Kulik-Mayer. And now, here's Jody.
We're doing something a little different for this episode, but it's a topic that is deeply personal and incredibly important to our community. My very first guest on this podcast was Juliette Samson, a remarkable CIO who shared her inspiring journey of balancing motherhood with her rise to leadership in the tech world. A key part of her story was her relentless determination to find a kidney for her daughter. Today, it's my honor to welcome that daughter, Andrea Samson. Andrea is a first responder, an EMT, and an inspiring individual who is currently in need of a kidney transplant. We're dedicating this episode to her story, her incredible work helping others, and how we can all come together to help her find a life-saving kidney. Hi, Andrea. Welcome to Tech Talent Today. It's wonderful having you on the show. And as I mentioned to you, your mom was my first guest ever on Tech Talent Today. And I was so moved by your story and your dedication to helping others. So it's a thrill to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor.
So you've really dedicated your life to helping others. You're a first responder and pursuing a career in acupuncture. So what was it about your health journey that inspired you to go along this path?
I don't think there was a particular moment for me. I always kind of knew I wanted to be a healer. In what capacity that might be. I guess I had to just experience life and see different things. Acupuncture itself was not something I always thought to myself, I'm going to be an acupuncturist. That was something I actually kind of stumbled into, but it's been an extremely healing journey. I've learned so much, and I really fell in love with its potential, what it can do for people. So integrative medicine is more the path that I'm on now, but it wasn't always that way. It was really about being a healer. And with my work as an EMT, I started off really just enjoying it. At first, it was a bit of a thrill. Every call is a new experience. You never know what you're going to get. And so it was an excitement for me. But with time, I just enjoyed talking to the people. You spend a good 20 minutes or more in the back of an ambulance with each patient. Most EMS calls are not critical, motor vehicle accidents, things like that. There's somebody falling and, maybe hurting a hip or something a little less acute. So we basically spend time in the back of the ambulance and you end up talking to them and you hear people's stories and it's an opportunity to connect. And I've learned so much just from my patients. It's been a really wonderful experience.
And you're there for them in their time of need and really can give them comfort. So I think connecting like that really helps calm the situation. So when did you first become an EMT? Was it in high school or college? When did you first try that?
It was the summer of my freshman year in college.
Right. I mean, you have a full schedule for school.
Yes.
So, I don't know if you were balancing your health at that time as well. So how did you fit that all in?
I mean, I'm always balancing my health. I think everyone should always be balancing their health. I wasn't sick per se at the time, in the way that I am now. But I've had a chronic condition since I was a child. So there were certain adaptations I had to have, in my life. I drink a lot of water. I think everybody should be drinking water, but I especially need to be drinking water. So there are minor changes that I've had to adapt into my life. And that's always just been part of my life. But I really started getting sicker, I should say, when I was a sophomore in college. That was my last transplant. And now I'm sicker again.
right? So how do you like cope and like keep moving forward with these challenges?
I really try to focus on my goals. I think one of the struggles of any chronic illness is that it tends to consume your life. Not just seeing doctors, but all the medicines you have to take and all of the different things that you have to deal with every day that just maybe a normal person doesn't have to think about. So I wake up with a lot less energy. I start with about a 20% battery, and I have to make that last a whole day. And I have to be very careful about how I choose to spend my energy every single day. And with that in mind, I do have these rather ambitious goals in my life. And so I have to prioritize my health, but also find ways to keep working towards the goals that I have. And I've come to kind of just not focus on thinking about my health. It's become natural. Like these are just things that I do. I know when I have to take my medicines, I drink more water. I make these things part of my life, but I'm not thinking about them all the time. I'm really thinking about my goals in my career and, the volunteer work that I'm doing, all of these other things, because maintaining normalcy is so important, for somebody like me who has a bit of a different life. But like I said, I do focus on my goals. I focus on all of these other things to maintain normalcy. And really, that's what keeps me going. I enjoy those other things. Those other things bring joy into my life. That's so, so important to find things that bring you joy. And I just keep that at the forefront, really. That's what keeps me going.
So what are some of the volunteer things that you're working on?
So I'm the second lieutenant of an emergency squad, a local squad, River Edge.
Mm-hmm.
And there, it's basically, I like to call myself the HR lady. That's really the gig. So I manage everybody's certifications, licenses, make sure everybody's up to date. If there's any disciplinary action, I also take part in that. I do the interviews, we onboard people. This is all the membership role, the HR role. So that keeps me quite busy. I also do ride in that town. So I ride a shift once a week. And I'm on another squad as well, which I've been a part of for going on 12 years, 11, 12 years, something like that. And I ride about once a month there. So I'm kind of a little bit everywhere, but I ride once a month in Long Hill and I ride once a week in River Edge.
Right. And how did you become the second lieutenant?
Well, I joined their squad about 2 years ago. I moved to the area and I just happened to drive by and see the building and thought, oh, great. Okay, this is convenient, close to my house, and I can serve the community. So I called up and kind of joined by chance. Um, then I was there for about a year and I was, I guess, very active and they asked me if I would like to take a leadership role and I agreed and that's been my role since.
Well, and is that taking a lot of your time? Because you would think that piece, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
full-time job in corporate America.
It's a pretty time consuming role. It's kind of a role where things come up all the time, so I just have to be, able to manage that. I am in school full time, so I commute to the city, and that does take a good portion of time for me. But in between classes, I'm on my emails, I'm responding to messages, I'm doing all the things that the role requires for the squad.
Right. And I also understand that you have a small tutoring business on top of all of this.
I do tutoring, yes. I've always loved teaching. It's always been a pleasure. I like mentoring. Part of also being a second lieutenant is I get to coach a lot of the newer people, which is wonderful. So that aspect of my personality is being used quite a bit. And I've been tutoring for about a decade, probably a little more now, and it's been sciences and math. everyone's favorite.
Right.
And I love that.
So what do you enjoy like the most about helping students?
Well, I think there's a moment when, a light bulb kind of goes off for a student. I think a lot of kids need encouragement more than anything. It's not if you can do it, but are you willing to put in the work to do it? And I think a lot of kids just need a little bit of encouragement and a little push to get it done. I don't think it's a matter of if they can. And a lot of times in their heads, they have this notion of like, I can't do it. It's too hard. I can't do it. And of course you can. You just put your mind to it, and you kind of take things one step at a time. And so I like breaking it down. I like breaking it down, and I like seeing it click for them and them seeing that they can do that. I think that's a powerful moment.
Right. And I think it's a gift to be able to figure out how somebody learns and then present it in that way,
Yeah.
because not everybody learns in the same way. Um, is this something you just know intuitively? Have you taken teaching classes?
Must be in my genes. I don't know. My grandfather was a professor. My mom taught for some time. And I guess I just also got the gene. I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so you mentioned you're also going for your master's degree in acupuncture. So like what like sparked your interest in like the intersection of Eastern and Western medicine?
I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't think to myself, I'm going to be an acupuncturist one day. I was on a pre-medical track and things were not progressing maybe the way that I had imagined or hoped. So I wanted to be in school, and I thought about different things that I could do. I have a very unconventional route into acupuncture. I think a lot of people have these profound stories. Something happened to them. Acupuncture was incredible, changed their life, and now they want to be an acupuncturist. And I can't say that I have that story, but I did stumble into it. I wanted to do something on my path towards medical school, and I thought about the different things I could do, and this is for some reason what excited me. I guess it was just the curiosity, not really knowing what it is. I do think folks, for the most part here, don't know a lot about acupuncture. It's not even that we don't understand it, but we just don't have exposure to it. So people don't think about it. They don't consider it as a potential treatment route for whatever ailment they have. So I went into this really not knowing. I imagined it truthfully to be kind of like a Tetris game. You put a needle, energy goes somewhere, put another needle, energy goes somewhere. Like, what does that all mean? So I didn't have a very clear direction when I started, and I didn't know what to expect. I only took a few courses my first semester because I wasn't really sure if I wanted to continue or not. And I slowly started hearing all kinds of interesting things that you can do with acupuncture. If people have heard of it, it's most likely in the context of fertility or pain management. And you can really specialize in anything with acupuncture. You can do dermatology. You can get your wedding glow up, that's what we call it. So you can get all kinds of nice, cosmetic work done. Of course, you can get all kinds of health work, more serious things. I'm interested in chronic illness work. I want to work with transplant, elongating the lifespan of organs, and hopefully, putting that in the context of Western medicine, we can do some really amazing things. But, you can do anything with acupuncture. And I think that's something people just don't know.
I agree, because that's something that I didn't know. And it's really interesting about like, helping with the longevity of organs. Like, could you tell a little bit more about that? Like, maybe
Yeah.
not how it works, or just like what like
How it
tell
works
more.
is kind of a loaded question. It's everyone's
Right,
favorite
it's a
question.
mystery.
It is. But, when we talk about what a mystery really is in medicine, I think a lot of the things we already do in medicine is a mystery, and we just don't realize it. People who have bipolar disorder sometimes have to take lithium, and we don't really know how that works, but we know it works, and we don't question it. right? So this whole idea of we have to know how it works, I don't think that's necessarily true. We do need to know that it's safe. We do need to know that it's effective. How it works is in many different ways. It's a very loaded question because it really is not the same every time. We can actually stimulate different portions of the brain to activate it via electrical stimulation. We can basically improve nerve regeneration. We're improving blood flow. So anytime you're bringing blood to an area, by definition, you're bringing oxygen there, you're bringing nutrients there, you're supporting the tissue in that area. There's a lot of different ways that it works, you know? So I mean, we could theorize, right? But each treatment is going to be different and it depends. Each practitioner is going to have a different idea of how they want to treat your condition. You can see 10 people with the same condition and get 10 different treatments. So it's very interesting, but it's very variable. And I think that's something also Western medicine has a hard time with because we like very concrete data. We like processes where we know exactly what's going on, step by step by step. But in Eastern medicine, we know vaguely what's going on, but we can't pinpoint it under a microscope the way we might in Western medicine when we isolate something and look at it that way. And that is kind of the basis of Western medicine. All of our studies that are done, we take something, we isolate it, and we test it. But the body doesn't actually work in isolation. Nothing does. So it's an imperfect model. Everything is an imperfect model. That's the definition of a model, really. But nonetheless, you know, there are very different perspectives. I think they offer very good results. Both sides do. And I think it's a matter of what's going to work for the person best. I think together we can accomplish much, much more.
And are you also using acupuncture in your own treatment?
I
Like
do
as part
see
of
an
your process?
acupuncturist. I'm not able to practice, of course, until I have a license,
Right.
but I will hopefully be a senior intern next year. So I can practice at the school in the clinic, and I will be. And until then, I do see an acupuncturist. We do needle each other in school because we have to, you know, practice. And I also have a model that I work on because I can't get needled right now.
Right.
So I have a lovely person who works with me every week and lets me treat her. It's very nice. So it's been a great experience. And in terms of longevity of organs, you know, my goal really is to improve that. Of course, I have a transplant and need another one now. But every time, you know, I get treated or I treat someone, I'm thinking about what more I can do. I'm thinking about how I can apply this to people like myself. You know, and there's, I think, no greater motivation to want to fix these kinds of issues because I'm experiencing them as well. So I'm very motivated to, you know, improve these kinds of conditions.
Right. Right. So, I guess for people who would be like interested in, you know, like donating a kidney, like what can you tell about that? Like take the mystery out of it.
So it's a process, you know. I think first of all, the recipient side and the donor side are very separate. So you wouldn't be talking to me per se. You wouldn't be talking to my team. And they do that very intentionally. They really want to focus on you and your safety and make sure that you're okay to donate. They only pick the healthiest people because they would never put anybody at risk. So that's the first thing. I know there are all kinds of questions about that, and there are some myths that came from all kinds of movies, you know, so clearing that up. But the process itself is about 3 months long. From my experience, you get a physical evaluation. Of course, they're going to look at your blood. They're going to make sure you're a match. Then they do tissue typing, which is basically just more testing to see that you're a match. Then they do a psychological evaluation because it is an emotional experience to donate. It's something I guess we don't talk about as much. We talk a lot about the physical aspect of medicine, not so much the emotional. but it is an emotional thing. You're giving a piece of yourself, and they have to make sure that that's something that you can handle and you have support around you and that you're going to be okay with that. So they really do evaluate everything and anything you can think of. And then once you go through all of that, they can set up a surgery and you can change your mind really until the moment surgery happens. So that's also part of the reason I don't think it's good for the recipient to know absolutely everything. But yes, we are separate teams. You will be very well taken care of. If anything were to ever happen to you where you required a kidney transplant one day and you were a donor, you are number one on the list. You would be the first to access organs. So you are treated very, very well, rightfully so. You're saving a life.
Right. They're giving a gift of life, and what could be like a more generous and loving than that? So, we're going to put in our show notes so people could learn more about your story and how to donate. But, I wanted to get your perspective on things. So, what are some of your ambitions for the future? You said you have a lot of goals.
Yes, I do. Well, integrative medicine is the end, goal. I want to have a private practice where I see patients for the acupuncture and Eastern medicine things. And then I also can see them in the hospital on the Western medicine side, because inevitably the kind of patients that I'm really eager to see and treat are individuals who are probably going to need to be seen in a hospital as well. So that is a reality. I do think I keep talking about this emotional aspect of medicine. I do think there's a lot to be said about community healing when somebody is, unwell. So I would like to have some community acupuncture events in the future. Community acupuncture is one way of practicing. Essentially, you have a big event and everybody comes and they all get acupuncture together and they sit together, and some people will chat, some people just decide to, read a book and sit with their needles in their ears. But it's a community healing experience, and it feels very different. There are different kinds of experiences you can have with acupuncture. You can go to a private practice. You can, get a very personal treatment. You're in this little room and you relax for an hour. You can have a community acupuncture experience where you're surrounded by people and it's like a socializing experience. And, there is an isolation aspect to chronic illness. It can be very debilitating. It can be very upsetting when you want to do the things that you do in your life and this thing is preventing you from doing them. So the goal is to get you back to those things. And part of that is community healing, I believe.
I think that's wonderful. And I think it's amazing how you keep moving forward with your goals. You don't let yourself get isolated and stay so positive. And
Thanks.
Really, your focus on helping others is just really admirable and inspiring. And I really appreciate you sharing your story with us today.
Thank you,
and
Jody.
Your dedication. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
If Andrea's story has moved you to act, please know that you can make a huge difference. In the show notes for this episode, you'll find all the information you'll need to help. Specifically, you'll find a link to the GoFundMe page to support Andrea, a direct link to the kidney donation form at RWJ Barnabas, Andrea's website and her Facebook page to learn more about her journey, and contact information to start the process of becoming a donor. We've also made sure to include some crucial instructions for potential donors. Please note that all donor expenses are covered, and it is vital that when you apply, you specify that you are donating specifically for Andrea Samson. Your support can help Andrea continue her life's work of helping others. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Tech Talent Today, brought to you by Clearmont Technologies IT Staffing and Search. You can find out more at clearmonttech.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share. See you next time.